Have you noticed how at certain moments the heart feels exhausted even before the body? It's striking. Even after a full night's sleep, some wake up drained, as if they had run an invisible marathon. Worries, fears, and pressures weigh like silent chains, and the more one tries to hide them, the more suffocating they become. But what if I told you that there is a rest that does not depend on circumstances, and that it can begin today? The truth is that what depletes our strength is not only the battles we face, but the feeling of facing them in complete solitude. And it is precisely here that the paradox is revealed. The more we try to control everything with our own hands, the more fragile we become. Yet there is a promise that breaks this logic, offering serenity when everything feels like chaos, hope when there are only tears, and strength when all energy is gone. Do you want to discover how to live this transformation? Then subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join me on this journey. Carrying a weary heart is like walking with an invisible burden pressing down with every step. Many try to hide this weight behind smiles or a busy routine, yet inside they feel worn out. This weariness does not go unnoticed, because there is one who sees even what human eyes cannot perceive. Nothing is hidden, not even the silent battles within. Worries, no matter how small they seem when added together, become a suffocating load. A misplaced word, an unmet expectation, an unexpected delay, each detail piles up. Just as tiny drops fill a jar until it overflows, these concerns end up leaving the mind and heart overwhelmed. It is precisely at this point that the need for relief arises. It is not uncommon to believe that the solution lies only in one's own strength. The heart insists on thinking that if it tries just a little harder, everything will be resolved. But this logic quickly reveals its weakness, for exhaustion sets in. The truth is, there are limits, and going beyond them alone is not a sign of courage, but of weariness. There is an invitation to lay this burden in safer hands. When one understands that it is not necessary to carry everything alone, the weight begins to lose its power. Just as a load divided among several people becomes lighter, surrendering what oppresses the soul means allowing it to be cared for in a greater way. This is the secret of not succumbing to the pressures that insist on piling up. The human mind can deceive, leading one to believe that enduring in silence is the best choice. However, the heart was not created to live oppressed. The accumulation of worries suffocates thoughts and robs peace, but there is a right place to unload what weighs heavily. That place is always available, waiting only for trust to be placed there. It is not about escaping, but about trusting. Just as one entrusts life to a doctor in times of pain, it is also possible to entrust worries to the one who truly cares. The burden does not need to be denied or ignored, but surrendered. As it is written, casting all your anxiety upon him, because he cares for you. The first epistle of Peter, chapter 5, verse 7. It is necessary to break the idea that pain is part of one's identity. The weary heart was not meant to live imprisoned by this weight. A new reality exists, where the burden can be lifted and replaced with rest. What once seemed unbearable becomes bearable when placed in the right hands. This is the first step, recognizing that it is not necessary to continue carrying everything alone. Once the heart opens to this surrender, it discovers that there is more than relief. There is also deep rest. A weary heart seeks refuge in many places, but none of them bring true rest. Some look for relief in distractions, others in achievements, yet the emptiness always returns. There is, however, a greater promise, a place where the soul finds peace beyond circumstances. This place does not depend on human effort, but on an invitation that remains valid even today. The soul, when overburdened, loses sensitivity to hope. It is as if every thought were trapped in a cycle of exhaustion. The one who looks within for strength soon realizes that their reserves are limited. It is precisely at this point that the need is revealed for something beyond human capacity, something that touches the depths of being. The promised rest is neither temporary nor illusory. It goes beyond physical sleep or moments of leisure. It is an inner tranquility that remains even in the midst of storms. Such rest does not demand perfection, but only a heart willing to draw near. The condition does not lie in performance, but in surrender. The promise of rest comes with a direct call. Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28. These words echo as an eternal answer to human restlessness. No matter the burden carried, there is relief available for all who come sincerely. When someone decides to heed this call, the heart finds a safe shelter. Worries still exist, but they no longer hold the same power to suffocate. The promised rest acts as an invisible shield, strengthening the soul amid pressures. This relief is not the absence of problems, but the presence of peace within them. It is important to realize that this rest is not earned, it is received. Unlike human rewards, which depend on effort or merit, the rest of the soul is the fruit of trust. There is no need to wear masks or pretend to have strength that does not exist. The invitation is clear: to come just as one is, without reservations, without disguises. This rest also transforms the way life is seen. What once seemed like an unbearable burden becomes an opportunity to experience renewed strength. It is as if the soul breathes again, finding space for hope and courage. Where there was weight, now there is lightness. Where there was despair, serenity is born. And as this rest is experienced, a path opens to understanding an even deeper truth. The strength that sustains does not come only from within, but from an inexhaustible source that renews day by day. The idea that all strength comes only from within oneself is misleading. Human beings, no matter how determined, carry limitations that sooner or later are revealed. It is at this point that the need arises to understand that there is a source of renewal beyond one's own ability. This source does not run dry, does not fail, and does not depend on human effort. When the journey becomes heavy, the feeling is that giving up would be the only way out. However, there is a secret revealed to those who choose to wait. Waiting is not passivity, but active trust. It makes room for strength to be restored in a supernatural way, able to sustain even on the most difficult days. The renewal of strength does not happen mechanically, but as a result of hope placed in the right place. The heart that turns to the Lord discovers that its weakness can be transformed into endurance. What once was frailty becomes an opportunity to experience power that is not limited by circumstances. It is written, "But those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." The book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31. This promise is not poetic only in words, but practical in its application. It sustains those who decide to trust. To trust does not mean to deny difficulties, but to recognize that one does not walk alone. Weariness still exists, but it no longer dominates the heart. Each new day, strength is restored in sufficient measure to endure what lies ahead. Thus the impossible becomes possible, and the unreachable becomes attainable. This renewed strength also teaches one to look at life differently. Instead of seeing only obstacles, the soul learns to perceive open paths. What once paralyzed now becomes an impulse to continue. It is as if every weakness were transformed into an invitation to experience greater power. Those who wait upon the Lord discover that their journey is carried by invisible wings. They do not remove the opposing wind, but they allow progress despite it. It is this strength that makes it possible to run without weariness and walk without fainting. It is not human, it is divine. It is not limited, it is eternal. And when the heart experiences this renewal, it discovers something even deeper. It is not enough to have strength to go on. It is also necessary to find the peace that guards the mind and heart in the midst of battles. Anxiety is like a shadow that runs ahead of events, stealing tranquility even before anything happens. It traps the mind in scenarios that often never come to pass. This invisible weight wears down, confuses, and drains strength. Yet there is a promise capable of silencing restlessness and offering peace beyond human understanding. The anxious heart seeks immediate answers and tries to control every detail of the future. But in practice, this only increases the weight because no one can master all the variables of life. The attempt to keep everything under control is like holding water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. True peace is not born from control, but from trust. The peace of Christ is neither fleeting nor conditioned by external circumstances. It does not depend on calm days or solved problems. On the contrary, it is precisely in the midst of chaos that this peace is most evident. It guards the mind and protects the heart when everything seems to revolve around uncertainty. It is written, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." The Epistle of Paul to the Philippians, chapter 4, verse 7. This promise reveals that the peace offered by Christ cannot be explained by human logic. It is not only felt, but deeply experienced. Anxiety may try to suffocate, but it has no power before the peace that comes from above. This peace acts as an inner fortress, preventing thoughts from being ruled by fear. It is the antidote to the restlessness that insists on taking space in the heart. Where the peace of Christ enters, anxiety loses its strength. Living in this peace does not mean ignoring challenges, but facing them with serenity. The heart that trusts in Christ finds balance even when everything around seems unstable. It is this peace that allows one to see solutions, where before there was only despair, and that leads the mind to rest in the midst of pressures. Those who receive this peace experience a state of security that does not depend on circumstances. Even in the face of the fiercest storms, there is an inner certainty that they are not abandoned. This conviction cannot be broken, for it was established on an eternal promise. And upon discovering this peace that surpasses anxiety, the heart also realizes that tears are not the end of the story. For there is a God who transforms sorrow into hope and prepares a new dawn for those who trust. And it is precisely this that leads to the next revelation. Tears often seem endless, as if the night would never end. The weary heart believes that pain will be permanent, but the promise of God shows otherwise. Life is not limited to suffering, for there is a time appointed for every season. Just as darkness cannot resist the rising of the sun, pain cannot prevail against hope. Crying may come accompanied by silence when words are not enough to express anguish. In this state, the soul feels the weight of every moment. Yet God does not ignore a single tear shed. Each one is seen, remembered, and transformed into seeds of comfort that bear fruit in future joy. Hope in Christ is neither vague nor uncertain. It is firm and secure. Even when the night feels longest, there is the assurance that a new dawn is on its way. This hope is not built on illusions, but founded on eternal promises. It guarantees that no pain will be greater than the joy that will come. It is written, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." The book of Psalms, chapter 30, verse 5. This truth echoes as a reminder that suffering is not final. Tomorrow holds something new for those who trust. Despair is replaced by the confidence that God always prepares a fresh start. God transforms tears into hope because he sees beyond the present moment. Where there is sorrow, he plants seeds of joy. Where there is despair, he builds paths of renewal. The heart that once seemed condemned to pain discovers it can blossom again. This is the mark of divine faithfulness, turning sorrow into victory. The nights of tears are not wasted. They water the soil, where hope will spring forth with greater strength. What once seemed like defeat becomes learning, and what once seemed like the end becomes a new beginning. God does not waste any experience of pain. He uses each one to build something greater. This hope also strengthens for the present. Even without seeing the future clearly, the heart rests in the certainty that joy will come. This rest produces courage to face battles, knowing that pain is temporary. Hope in Christ illuminates the path and keeps trust alive. And when the heart understands that sorrow can be transformed into hope, a deeper invitation arises to surrender the weary heart once and for all, opening space for the one who knocks at the door and desires to dwell within. The weary heart does not need to remain imprisoned by the weight it carries. There is a daily invitation for it to be surrendered to the one who has the power to renew all things. This call is personal, direct, and urgent. Jesus does not present himself as a distant option, but as someone who desires to walk alongside, bringing relief and new life. The most transformative gesture begins when the heart decides to make room. It is not about perfection, but about sincerity. Jesus does not require life to be organized or flawless before surrender. What he asks is simply the willingness to open the inner door, allowing his presence to occupy the places once dominated by weariness. This call is recorded in words that transcend centuries. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. The book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 20. This promise reveals his closeness and his desire for deep communion. He does not force his way in, but waits for the heart's decision. Opening the door means allowing the burden to be exchanged for rest. The soul that surrenders discovers it no longer has to struggle alone against worries and fears. The presence of Christ becomes the constant source of renewal. He not only brings relief, but strengthens to face each challenge with courage and hope. This surrender also produces inner transformation. The weary heart becomes a restored heart, filled with a new perspective. What once seemed like an ending becomes a beginning. Life gains new meaning because it is no longer grounded only in human strength, but in communion with the one who never fails. No matter how long the journey marked by tears or pain has been, the opportunity to surrender the heart is always available. Today can be the beginning of a true new start, where every weary area receives new life. This is the gift offered by Christ. Rest in the midst of exhaustion and hope in the midst of uncertainty. When this surrender takes place, the soul discovers it is not alone. Jesus becomes a constant companion, ready to guide, sustain, and renew. Daily communion strengthens and provides direction, transforming what was once discouragement into purpose. The heart that opens itself experiences an entirely new reality, and as this invitation comes to a close, the cycle of the chapters finds its central message. The weary heart finds rest, peace, hope, and renewal in Christ. Yet the journey does not end here, for it is now time to shape this entire message into an introduction and conclusion that will touch the heart of the listener. And now I ask you, how much longer will you carry alone the burden that could already have been placed in the right hands? How many opportunities for peace will still be wasted by believing that everything depends solely on your own strength? The weary heart can indeed find relief, but this only becomes real when you choose to take the first step. Reflect. What would your life look like if restlessness no longer ruled your thoughts? What would change in your daily walk if, instead of sorrow, you found renewed hope each morning? These answers are not far away. They are already within reach for those who decide to trust. The choice is yours, and it can completely redefine the course of your story. That is why I want to challenge you. Do not keep this message only for yourself. Share it now with at least 2 people you know who need to be reached by this truth. Be a channel of hope in their lives, just as this word has reached your heart. And of course, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep moving forward with me on this journey of transformation. Because with every new message, you will gain more clarity, more courage, and more peace to live a restored life. The next step is already waiting for you.